Jimmy Lee's unexpected paternity. Predicament. On a day as lovely as a squirrel's birthday party, Jimmy Lee found himself caught in a whirlwind of unexpected events. The weather was mild, and he was strolling through the neighborhood when he bumped into his neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, accompanied by her little girl child. Mrs. Patterson, being the inquisitive soul she was, immediately asked, "Jimmy Lee, how have you been? Long time no see." Jimmy, with his trademark grin, replied, "Oh, I'm doing just fine, thank you. Say, why don't you come over for a glass of wine?" However, fate had a wicked sense of humor that day, as Mrs. Patterson shook her head and sighed, "Not today, honey. I'm working until 9. Suddenly, the little girl child unleashed a storm of boo-hooing and crying. Startled, Jimmy turned to her and asked, "What's wrong, Missy?" With tear-filled eyes, Missy pointed a tiny finger at Jimmy and declared, "Missy's your daughter, and I'm gonna take you to court." Jimmy's jaw dropped faster than a pancake escaping a hot skillet. "Wait, what? Are you sure?" he stammered, his mind racing with disbelief. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Jimmy pondered his options. Alas, he had no money to spare for child support. But he couldn't leave Missy hanging, so he scraped together every last penny he could find, which amounted to a measly. He handed it over to Mrs. Patterson, who reluctantly accepted it, burdened with the unrelenting pain of raising a child alone. As days went by, Jimmy couldn't shake the doubt that lingered in his mind. Could this little girl child possibly be his? Memories flooded back to him, specifically the night when he and Mrs. Patterson dined and drank fine wine. Their laughter echoed in his ears, mingling with the sound of a distant saxophone. Time flew like a hummingbird on caffeine, and the court date finally arrived. With trembling knees, Jimmy entered the courtroom, where the truth would be unveiled like a magician's rabbit. The judge, an old, wise owl of the legal realm, gazed down at Jimmy with a hint of amusement in his eyes. After hearing both sides of the story, the judge leaned back in his chair, stroked his chin, and pronounced, "Jimmy Lee, I have reached a decision. The DNA test results are in." The courtroom held its breath, as if an army of penguins had collectively stopped waddling. The judge continued, "Jimmy, my friend, you are not the father." The room erupted with a mix of gasps, laughter, and relieved sighs. Jimmy felt a mixture of emotions, relief, confusion, and a touch of embarrassment for his brief stint as a potential dad. As he left the courtroom, Jimmy realized the hilarity of it all. Life had played a prank on him, but in the end, he had learned a valuable lesson. The moral of the story? Always keep track of your fine wine escapades, for a misplaced glass could lead to unexpected paternity predicaments. And so, Jimmy Lee, freed from the burden of fatherhood, walked into the sunset with a renewed appreciation for the whimsical twists and turns life could throw at him. He knew that from that day forward, he would always double-check his wine glasses and cherish the laughter that followed him, like a playful shadow.